Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension here in Hernando County, Florida. And our regular co-host, Lily Browning, is here with us this morning. She's the Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator here in Hernando County.
Program coordinator, yes.
Program coordinator, okay. I always get that wrong, I think. She's in charge of the Florida Friendly Landscape Program here in Hernando County. And joining us today is a special guest assistant host, I guess. My boss, Jim Davis, who's the County Extension Director, both here in Hernando County, Florida, and also next door in Sumter County, Florida. So good morning, Jim. How are you doing?
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Well, we have somebody on here. Austin's on here. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Austin joins us from Minnesota or Missouri, somewhere out there.
Oh, very cool. Out of state. Awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was Michigan, somewhere way Ann Arbor, Michigan, way up north.
Yes.
And they work in a nursery up there, I think. So,
very cool.
So if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and type them in.
Wisconsin, we were.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was close.
Green Bay.
Yes.
So see, we have people from all over the country on here.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type them in the comments, and we'll get to them. I guess the topic for today, like so often recently, is water.
Please don't bring it up, Bill. Please don't bring it up.
Yes. Lack of water or lack of rainfall, basically, here in Central Florida. So I have no idea what the weather's been like up in Green Bay. Chances are probably still pretty cold. But here in Central Florida, it's definitely warm. Feels like summer is pretty much here, and it has not been raining, which means everybody's lawn starts to get really dry and turn tan and brown and get a little bit crunchy. And everybody wants to go out there and start watering their lawn. And Lily, why should they not start doing that every single day to keep it green and beautiful?
Well, there are many reasons why they shouldn't be doing that. And I understand that it's dry. My lawn is very crunchy when you walk across it. But our 1 day a week ordinance is not going to change. I tend to get some phone calls from people who seem to have a misunderstanding of how it all works, because they feel that they should be given permission to water more often because it's so dry. And they are only thinking of how dry their plants or their lawn is. They're not really thinking of the source of where you draw that water from. And there are several things going on. Lots of people panicking, so they're cheating, with our 1 day a week watering rules. And if you get caught by code enforcement, you will be fined immediately. Also, because it is so hot and dry, the water sources are also kind of going down. It's a double-edged sword. More people are taking from it, but it is also just naturally going down. I did hear last week, I was in a groundwater guardian meeting, and so we get to hear from the water management district. And we're still in the medium yellow band of normal levels of, not rainfall by any means, but normal water levels, but we are on the very bottom of that band of normal. And in a week, that could have changed. We may have dipped below normal. But in a couple of weeks, I promise, the summer rains are going to come here to Hernando County. In fact, I ordered them for both of you guys for Father's Day. We're going to start.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, we're going to start having the summer rains. But I know it's drier than I've seen it in a long time, too. My beautyberry is wilting.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, but if you have Bahia, when the rains start, you'll stand there and watch it turn green. You guys know that. If you have Floratam, really that 1 inch on that 1 day a week watering is going to help it survive. As long as you mow it high enough and you're not pouring chemicals or stressing it by fertilizing it right now or putting a pesticide on it. Basically, but it might not be up to the standard that your HOA wants at this point yet, and that is where we're running into a lot of phone calls and a lot of issues.
Yeah, that could be a problem. And Diana mentioned something that I saw on the news this morning also, that Sarasota is on emergency state of alert, water alert, because their water supply is just being overwhelmed. There's so many people demanding water, mostly for irrigation, I would assume. I mean, we use water for other purposes too, but a lot of it is used for outdoor irrigation, and it's just kind of overwhelming the system. So we don't have those kind of problems here in Hernando County, but if we keep going and people keep, overusing water, we might have those kind of problems.
And we're also shown a map in those groundwater guardian meetings where, where it's drier than normal, wetter than normal. And that can change just within, Central Florida. But that little boot that is Pinellas and, Sarasota and all those counties, those are they have been pretty dry. I don't think they, have seen any rain in the month of May. I don't know that any of us have, but they are in the drier than normal phase.
And it's very important that if you live in another county, you need to check and find out what your restrictions are where you live. Because Lily and I are giving you information on Hernando County, and we're under once a week irrigation, but it varies from county to county. So wherever you may live, you need to check how many days a week you can irrigate and what days you're allowed to at your address and the specific rules for your county. So Jim, I was wondering, does Sumter County have any kind of watering restrictions?
We just follow the watering restrictions, current ones from the Southwest Florida Water Management District. So they're implementing those, and if you're interested in looking at those, you can I would just suggest going to watermatters.org. And you can find those local watering restrictions along with some great watering info on there from the Water Management District. So a lot of people have no idea what the district has. We work with the district very closely in all of our counties, and their main office is there in Hernando County. But if you go to the watermatters.org, you can get some great information on water conservation, not only outside but inside as well. And there's another entity called the Villages Water Wisdom, and so that's a local entity there in the villages. So if any villages residents happen to be on and want local watering restrictions for their community, they can look into that.
And with Sarasota being put on alert, I would not be surprised if that doesn't start kind of other counties, really looking at things too. It will be the Water Management District that makes the next move. Sumter County follows their recommendations. Hernando County is always on 1 day a week. And just so you know, when a municipality's ordinance is stricter than a district's, you have to follow the municipality's ordinance. Hernando, Citrus just went about a year ago on the 1 day a week. I think Pasco if you go to that watermatters.org, like Jim said, it'll show you the list of what counties, follow what rules. So we're still status quo today. I don't know, the district might be having meetings as we speak. And so if things change, if we go into a phase 1, what will happen then is you'll still water 1 day a week. We've been doing that, but the other counties will also be on 1 day a week, and there will be restrictions on pressure washing and washing your car and various things like that. But we would make you very well aware of it.
Yeah, and Southwest Florida Water Management District makes those decisions, and they're constantly monitoring things.
Yes.
They have test wells that they're always measuring, keeping on top of the underground water levels because they always kind of follow the weather. So after it's been dry for a little while, all of a sudden our groundwater levels start to drop, and it starts to have an impact on how much we can actually draw out of the ground.
So now is the time you might, start making decisions in your yard. I have a pinned to the top of my Facebook page, Hernando FFL program Facebook page. Caring for your lawn when it's hot and dry. So you can watch that video. It also talks about other landscape plants. Great time to have a rain barrel if there's any rain in it left from before. And great time. There are just other little things we can do if you're worried about your landscape plants. Bring a bucket in the shower with you. There's water that goes down the drain that might not even ever touch you. Gather some of that up, then take it out later when it cools down and use that on your landscape plants. You cook some vegetables in some water, wait for that cools down, take it out, throw it in your landscape plant.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. And it has nutrients in it too. So.
Okay, if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat. And we have one here that kind of ties in with some pictures that I was emailed yesterday. So Joseph asks, when do avocado trees usually flower? I know that they have already flowered. They flower in the very late winter, very early spring in South Florida. When do you see them flower around here? We don't have an awful lot in Central Florida. I think they would have already flowered by this point.
I think he's asking you, Jim.
Oh, that is something I do not know.
Yes.
So unfortunately, I can't answer that one for you.
Let's both point at Bill then. Let's point back.
Oh, there are some days where we get the Pinellas and Broward County folks on here, and they're asking questions about coconut palms and papayas and bananas. And I'm thinking, do you live in Hernando County? They say, no, we live in Broward County. So, well, that makes sense. They do great down there, but they don't do quite as well up here. Hernando County is a little too far north. It gets a little bit too cold during the winter. But I have a picture here that I was sent. And that was sent to me from Johanna here in Hernando County. And this is a leaf off of her avocado tree. And here's another picture of it. And it has a brown spot on it. So anybody want to take a guess at what that might be? That is a fungus. That is a fungal leaf spot. And avocados are going to have that problem. They have it down in South Florida. They have it here in Central Florida. That's pretty normal for an avocado. Avocados are one of those things that you're going to have to plan on spraying with a fungicide on a pretty regular basis during the summer. Now, probably for most people, it hasn't been too bad yet because what makes those fungal problems really bad is when it starts getting really wet and humid and rainy, and that really hasn't happened here a whole lot yet. It's been pretty dry. Yes, Corey comes out with the correct answer here, rust. So it's some kind of rust or fungal leaf spot. Really hard to tell from just, eyeballing it. I couldn't tell you what species it is. Could be Cercospora, could be Anthracnose, but avocados get fungal leaf spots, so you're going to have to spray it with a fungicide. Citrus, fungicide. Peaches, plums, nectarines, you're going to need a fungicide on them. So otherwise, if you don't spray it with the fungicide, you're going to get a lot of leaves that get brown spots on them. The whole leaf is going to turn brown and drop off, and you're going to start losing a lot of leaves off the tree, and it's going to make less food and be less healthy long term.
So, Bill, whenever you apply a fungicide to those leaves, is it going to correct the leaves? Is it going to make them look well again, or how does that work?
No, and that's a good point. It will not fix that leaf. So that leaf is never ever going to look any better than it does right now. But what fungicides do is they're a very good protectant. So the brand new little leaves that are just starting to come out on the tree, it will protect them from a fungus getting on them and making spots on them. So you always want to use fungicides as a preventative control for fungal leaf spots.
And I know and you always, whenever you look at these different types of fungicides, there is a fungicide out there. You have all these warning labels, right? So caution, you have caution, you have warning and danger. Obviously, they don't have anything, I don't think, danger on the homeowner level, but there is warning. There is one product that's a fungicide that does have a warning label on there. And that warning label has to do with pollinators. So I think based on the instruction of those labels is that you want to avoid applying a fungicide when that plant's flowering. And so just make sure you read the label thoroughly, and more is not better. And just like Bill said, whenever that plant starts to bud out, apply that fungicide. That's the best time to aid in that. And also, I don't know, Bill, are some of these fungicides temperature dependent? So if it's like, we're in like the 80s and 90s right here in Florida, does a person need to be putting down fungicide in mid-afternoon at 90-degree weather?
Probably not. And all the information on that is going to be on the label. There are a number of different things that you may put down in your yard that are temperature dependent. I know a really important one is any kind of herbicide or weed and feed, because every summer we're hear from a few people who put down a weed and feed, which we don't recommend, or a weed killer in the heat of summer. And the label says, don't use this if the average temperature is above, let's say 85 or so. And they put it down in the middle of the day and they kill their entire lawn. So bad things can happen if you ignore the label directions. And any kind of insecticide that has an oil in it. Because what happens if you go to the beach on a really sunny July afternoon and you put baby oil all over yourself, you will fry. And plant leaves, the same thing can happen to them. So be very, very careful with oils, with herbicides. Fungicides, not so much. There may be some temperature warnings on individual labels. You always want to read the entire label before you mix it and use it. Don't do the old, if something goes wrong, you refer to the directions and read it afterwards. Because Jim, I'm sure you've heard a lot of sad stories of people who have killed hedges, killed lawns, things like that. And you find out what they use and you pull up the label online and read it. It's like, uh-oh, I know what happened. It says, don't do it what you did. And it's, good way to kill a lot of plants, basically.
Exactly.
Well, Jim, you have that weed and feed story. Was it from
yes,
the Wellington? Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a gentleman who put down weed and feed, and he put this on his St. Augustine grass that we have in Florida. And so we have different cultivars. So he had the Floratam cultivar, which is the most predominant. It's a full sun cultivar, St. Augustine. And so he put this weed and feed on his St. Augustine. And probably within a week, all of his St. Augustine died, even though it was listed for St. Augustine. And so people are wondering, well, why is that? Well, in little tiny letters on the label, it says, do not apply to Floratam St. Augustine grass. And so that is a type of weeding feed called 2,4-D. And 2,4-D will straight out kill Floratam St. Augustine grass. Now, other St. Augustine grass cultivars, it might be fine for. It's whatever one's out there that's not listed, but it specifically states Floratam. And his wife was not too happy at all. But here's the interesting thing about this is that whenever you looked at his yards, the prior pictures, it was really, really hard to find a weed in his lawn. And so his lawn wasn't like covered full of weeds. It was a very good looking lawn. And to me, if you only have a couple weeds in your lawn, you can let it be. Why not? It's not that big of a deal in most cases. I have weeds in my St. Augustine. I don't care. Or you can hand pick them out, or you can spot treat it instead of just nuking your whole lawn. That's where weed and fees, where we really don't recommend it, because it's really not, in a lot of cases, it's not necessary to do the whole lawn. Spot treating is very, 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 very efficient. And going back to the application of fungicides and especially insecticides, a person sees a bug on a plant, and the first thing they want to do, oh my gosh, especially if they see something be chewing, they want to spray it, right? Well, first of all, identify the bug. And is the bug really doing any damage? Is it doing any significant damage? And so this is what we call threshold. So what's the threshold? What's the acceptable threshold? Obviously, if you're in a flower industry, selling flowers, that's going to be pretty much zero. You want to control it. But if you're a typical gardener, it's okay. I have aphids eating some of my plants. It doesn't matter. But I have the beneficials taking care of the pest. So there's a balance there, okay? And so my threshold hasn't achieved yet. Now, if I have a plant that has a lot of insects in it, then yeah, I might apply something. But if I have to apply in my yard, Bill, if I have to apply something on a frequent basis, that plant is dug up, and I choose a better plant because I don't have time to fool with it.
Yeah, and certain things, like, for example, I have lover grasshoppers in my yard. They get on the screen in the backyard, and my wife goes into an absolute panic. She hates the way they look. I have a holly hedge, American holly, out front, and I have a few out there, and they don't eat the holly. They're not causing any damage. They're just there. And I have a vegetable garden. I had a few lovers back in the tomatoes. And I looked real closely. I could not find any leaves that they chewed on or damaged. They're just there. So if you see a bug, don't think that you have to rush to your shed and start spraying to get rid of a bug. Obviously, if it's causing major damage, tomato hornworm has eaten half of your tomato plant. You probably want to do something. But what I do is, if I have one caterpillar, I pick it off and it goes over the fence in the neighbor's yard. A whole lot quicker and easier than having to mix something and spray.
Now, Bill, I'm an entomologist, but I'm an urban entomologist. So the threshold for that is a lot less. So if you see one German cockroach in your house, you need to do something about it.
Yeah. But if you see an Australian or Cuban cockroach inside of your house, there's a good chance that it just wandered in, because they generally prefer living outdoors. So you need to look a little bit deeper. Do I have a problem? Am I a hoarder? Do I have a garage full of wet paper and cardboard boxes that I need to do something with? You have to look a little bit deeper.
It's always identification. That's the key thing.
Most people are not going to ask the nationality of the roach, though.
But it's interestingly, so the Australian cockroach, the German cockroach, the American cockroach, all comes from Africa. So it's these common names. You come to Florida, what's a palmetto bug? I can give you 5 bugs that are palmetto bugs that are totally different species.
Mm-hmm. They're all big and they all fly.
If it's big and it flies in Florida, it's a palmetto bug.
That's what they have the memes about, that we're all tough until the roach, begins to fly.
But if you have a bug and you don't know what it is, and you don't know if you need to do something about it or not, that is what Extension is here for. So take a couple of really good pictures and email them. Here, let me throw my email up here. So the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of me and get an accurate answer is just shoot me an email with pictures, and we can look at the pictures and figure out pretty quickly what it is. Or if you prefer to send emails to Jim, I'm sure he doesn't get enough emails yet, so send him a few more. Send him pictures and we could tell you. And it is difficult to identify from a picture a German cockroach or Asian. But generally, if it's an adult, we can tell you from a picture what kind of roach it is and whether you need to call an exterminator or, do something about it.
Yeah, anything about, bed bugs, German cockroaches, termites, ticks, mosquitoes, and stuff like that. Any questions y'all have, y'all can email me. So Dr. Faith Hoy, who's our extension specialist and director of Pest Management University, we do a monthly urban pest management series. So this is the kind of stuff that we like to see and like to help people with. So feel free to send those in.
Yeah, because there's so much bad information out there. If you ask your neighbor or your brother-in-law for their advice, it's probably not going to be correct. At least in my experience, it's not usually correct. And
please don't ask
there are professionals out there. But if you contact a professional, they're going to have to come out to your house and look at it, and there's going to be a charge involved. So make use of extension. We're free. We have email. Send us pictures. We'll look at them. If it's something that we need to have a physical sample, we'll tell you, and you could drop one by the office. We have microscopes. We can look at them. If we don't know what it is, we could take pictures under the microscope and email it to the researchers up there in Gainesville, University of Florida. But Deb said she found a lover and it got thrown under the bus. So that's called mechanical or physical control that is effective.
I think you have a question up there about mangoes too.
We're moving back up to that, but Corey said he saw one of the sexton beetles, or it's also called carrion beetles, burying a dead squirrel. Those guys are pretty cool. It's a fairly large beetle. It's dark color, but it has red spots on the back. And if any animal gets run over by a car or meets untimely demise, those beetles are amazing at finding it within minutes. Literally within minutes, those beetles will come and find it and start laying their eggs on it to help break it down or recycle it in the environment.
Yeah, those are a cool beetle, and they have an awesome antenna. They're amazingly strong. Cool little critters.
I had never heard the term sexton beetle. I like that. It's much nicer than carrion beetle, but it also shows that they're doing a very important job. They're a caretaker of the earth. So
I prefer carrion beetle. And if you catch one of them and look at it either with the hand lens or under a microscope, they almost always have little tiny mites on their legs. And they have an interaction with the mites. When they find a dead animal, they'll land on it, and the mites jump off their legs onto the dead animal also. When the beetle lays its eggs on the dead animal, the beetle larvae start to feed on it. The mites help to deter or keep away fly larvae and other insects so that the beetles have a better chance of surviving to adulthood and laying their eggs. So it's a little win-win situation with the mites.
What do the mites get out of it? They eat off the carrion?
What the mites get is mites don't fly. So how is a mite going to go to a new dead animal?
But they eat off of the dead animal?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The mites use the beetle as a great big flying Uber.
That's called foracy. So it's where the insect hitches a ride to another insect's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a few other things that do that. A pine beetle that moves nematodes from tree to tree. The beetles that feed on coconut palms down in South Florida move nematodes also that cause red ring disease. So yeah, we're kind of fascinated with those things here with extension. So going up to the questions here, we got a little bit of everything kind of all over the place. Kimberly asks, this is my first year of having blueberry bushes. Now that they are past the picking season, do we cut them back? And if so, how much?
She's in Brooksville.
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody want to jump in? I'm not really the blueberry expert, but I know that blueberries, after they flower and after you pick the blueberries, you can trim them back a little bit. Of course, you always want to look for any dead or broken branches and trim them off because they're never going to recover and get better. You can trim it back a little bit, and that's going to encourage new summertime growth, because this is the time of year where it's going to grow and make new leaves and new branches, and the bush is going to get larger. And then, of course, in the fall, all the leaves are going to fall off, and they sit there and look pretty bare all winter until the spring when they come out with new flowers. So now is when you want to take good care of them. Prune them back a little bit. They really don't have to be pruned back a lot. Just a light trimming is going to help encourage some new growth on them.
I would wait till the rains come.
Yeah, well, chances are Kimberly has them either growing in the ground or in a container, and she's able to irrigate them.
Mm-hmm.
But still, even a small garden, I know it's tough. I have a small vegetable garden, and it's tough to go out there and start. I just water it for 10 minutes at a time, and even that starts to make a noticeable effect on the water bill. My wife has pointed out to me, our water bill went up. Sorry, I have to water the vegetable garden. And Louise is down in Broward County. So see, we have, for some reason, everybody in South Florida loves us. She has an established Kerry mango tree. It's 5 to 7 years old. When do you prune it? Is fertilizer or fungicide needed? She had less than 10 mangoes this year. Last year, more than 25. What happened? You probably want to, for specific information, contact your Broward County Extension office. But based on what little I know about mango trees, is you would prune them in the spring lightly. You really don't have to prune them back for a dooryard or homeowner mango tree. You don't have to prune them back a lot. Commercial mango grows down there in Homestead. It's amazing how they prune them. They have trucks and services with, it's literally, picture a circular saw, a huge one on a boom that goes down the row of trees and saws them on the side, and then does the same thing on the top to kind of box cut them. And in Homestead, they grow back. They grow like weeds. They're going to grow back very, very quickly. So in Broward County, you can prune them back a little bit to encourage new growth. You're going to want to fertilize them. You're going to want to use fruit tree fertilizer. There are fertilizers that are labeled for mangoes and avocados. I think it's very close to the formulation you use for palm trees. And my guess is you're going to have to get on a regular fungicide program, because mangoes do get different fungal problems that you want to help control or minimize. So Louise, for specific information, if you contact your Broward County Extension office, or University of Florida has a ton of great information online. If you just Google University of Florida EDIS, EDIS, and that's the Electronic Data Information System, I think.
Mm-hmm. They've changed it up a little bit. Now it's Ask EDIS, and there's more blogs, and you can still find PDFs of publications, but they're getting into more articles and blogs and stuff. But you find a lot of the information.
Yeah, it is. It's a brand new format, and it's Ask IFAS, powered by EDIS. And I just sent, I don't know if it's available to the people, Bill, because it's my first time on this platform. So on the private chat, I just put in Blueberry Gardener's Guide for Kim in Brooksville. So I gave the link to that. And this is written by several faculty members. One of our specialists, who is the blueberry expert in the state, Jeff Williamson. So that'll get you started on that. And also there's some publications on trimming southern high bush and so on. So hopefully that'll help you out as far as getting started with those blueberries. And
she can always take a trip over to JG Ranch too. And, I'm sure they'd be glad to educate her on what they do with their blueberries, as well.
Yeah, and they're right in Brooksville also.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead and put the link to the blueberry publication in the comments here, but I'm not sure if it's showing up on all the different Facebooks and YouTube and everything. But if you look online, like I said, the University of Florida has a lot of really good homeowner-based information. So if you're looking up blueberries, if you go to their little search engine, and look up blueberries. They have publications. Same with mangoes. Same with avocado.
Mhm.
But going back to what Jim was saying about the beneficial insects, Corey says that Frank Aldo down in Pasco County did a video about coontie and how the whiteflies attract a ton of predators. And I know at our last extension office, we used to have a coontie right at the edge of the parking lot. I parked my car right by it every day. And over the winter, it started to look terrible. Every day I'd hop out of my car and it was just eaten up with scale. I never did anything about it. I just kind of look at it like, wow, scales are getting even worse. Wow, the coontie's looking really terrible. In the spring, we got beneficial insects. There's a native Florida ladybug that's called the Mealybug Destroyer. And I noticed several of them on there, and they cleaned up the pest very, very quickly, all on their own, because I never did anything to it. I wasn't going to spray it or do anything. I was just observing what happened in the wild. So even without us or me or the caretakers of the property doing anything, the problem basically took care of itself, because coontie's a native plant and it had native pests on it, and we had a native beneficial come along and solve the problem. And by late spring, it was growing back and looking pretty good, really.
We need to invite Frank back as a guest.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've had Frank on here quite a few times, or several times in the past. So I know him and Lily do a very good job. If I'm called away or unable to do this, they kind of take charge of it. And
Yes, I like to have smart people around me.
okay, we have any other?
I sent you an email of a picture I took yesterday of a coworker, a new coworker here at the office. Now that we're back, now that I'm back at the office. Don't know if you've got that email.
Yeah, no, I got that. Give me a second here, and I'll go ahead and open it up.
The tension is building. If you look down in the right, the bottom pane. So what do you see there, Dr. Lester?
I see a mysterious hole in the ground.
Yes. Do we want to have people guess what that might be?
I don't know. Jim works a lot with natural resources. He knows
Jim knows exactly what it is.
that live underground. I just have to worry about the insects that live underground.
Giving people a chance to answer. Maybe you can circle what it is we're looking at, or with your mouse. Oh, well, yes and no.
Close.
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 Be more specific.
It's our only one in the States.
Yes. Oh, gosh, no.
Is it ants?
No, that's a pretty big hole out there. You were closer the first time. We're just picking on your verbiage. That's all.
Yeah, I hope we don't have ants that large here yet.
Yeah. It's a tortoise. Tortoises are land animals. There you go.
There you go, Corey nailed it. Tortoise.
There we go. Tortoise.
Yep, it's Monday they came and mowed. I don't know what they were mowing. And Tuesday she showed up, and you see that I've named her. Her name is Tallulah, the tortoise. And recorded her presence so that we're going to have someone barricade around her so they don't mow there anymore. Okay, I'm sorry.
So Deb says, give me a break. I'm from Ohio. So the Gopher Tortoise, the Gopher Tortoises are pretty cool. And you can see this mound right here. And there's the entrance, and it's usually oval shaped depending on the size of the Gopher Tortoise. We have a little baby living in our garden. In Hernando office, we have 3 or 4 large ones out there. And so this is called the apron. And so this whole area is protected by state law. and it also is federally protected as well. And so the gopher tortoise is protected and the mound is protected because most people don't know is that the gopher tortoise, a lot of times what they do is they lay their eggs at the entrance, this apron to the hole. So if you actually get too close or if you mow, you're destroying the eggs. Now, why is that such a bad thing? Obviously, you're killing baby tortoises. But it takes years and years and years for a tortoise to become sexually reproductive. It takes a number of years. So they have a high mortality rate from the beginning, from the babies going up survival. Then it takes forever for them to be sexual reproductive. And that's not going going for them. And so they have a lot of stuff against them. So that's why these reptiles are protected, and they're what we call an indicator species, not an indicator species. They are called a keystone species. And so a keystone species means this little hole right here can host over 300 different animals, just like the American alligator is a keystone species to Florida. So if you wipe out one of those animals, you're severely hurting everything in that food web and that chain. So it's a very cool little animal. And what Lily said, it is a terrestrial tortoise. So we've had stories. Steve Johnson, our specialist, told one really cool story that he was in the Panhandle. And, gopher tortoises live on the beach. They love our sand dunes. That's perfect environment for them. So he was out there kayaking near Panama City, Destin area, I think, somewhere out there. And so he saw some people carrying a turtle into the ocean. So he was paddling with his kayak as fast as he could. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Oh, the good-hearted people, they didn't know."
Oh, yeah.
And so they were like, we're gonna release this turtle back in the ocean. He's like, no, that turtle doesn't swim.
Oh my gosh.
So don't put a gopher tortoise in the ocean, But if you see one now, one of the questions that people have is, okay, if I see a gopher tortoise crossing a road, because it's illegal to touch them, harass them, handle them, and so on. So if I see a gopher tortoise crossing the road, is it okay to pick it up and help it across? Will I get in trouble? And no, you will not get in trouble. You are allowed to by FWC. Just pick that tortoise up and make sure that it's headed in the right direction. So if he's heading this way, don't face him the other way, because he'll just turn around and go. And the interesting thing is that with most of the well, you have tortoises do this, but we have a lot of turtles in Florida. But most of the turtles traveling right now are the females. And so they're going to start looking for places to lay eggs. So that is very cool that Lily has a resident gopher tortoise living in.
Yeah.
So hopefully Tallulah is going to stay there for a long time.
I have several at home, but Tallulah showed up there at work right outside my cubicle window. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I live in Spring Hill, and every empty lot in the neighborhood has gopher tortoises living in it. Quite a few in individual lots. And just walking down the street, you'll see the mounds right at the very edge of the lot.
And I figured naming her is going to help me with my campaign of, people protecting her here at the office.
Do you know if coyotes are a problem with gopher tortoises, Jim? I know they're.
I don't know. They're opportunistic, so I don't know if they're going to actively feed on gopher tortoises or not. But they're food for a lot of animals. So I guess if a coyote can get the shell and get the tortoise within, and they may harass them or whatever. That is the babies. That definitely is a possibility. But what Corey says, mentioned was that the developments coming in. That's the biggest. The biggest damage is this. The developments come in. That's the habitat destruction. And so that's a big problem. And one of the constant problems that we see, Bill and Lily see all the time, that's frustrating, right across from my office in Hernando, is whenever you have the landscape professionals, the mower guys come in and they just mow over the mounds. And a lot of times they have no idea. They know that the gopher tortoise is protected, but they have no idea that the mound's protected. they haven't a clue. And so oftentimes if you go out and, try to talk to them, say, hey, this is what happens. This is what is protected. Obviously they can be fined for that, but we want to try to educate them first, and hopefully they'll change that behavior. But habitat destruction is big, and habitat fragmentation is also big. So what I mean by that is, you have developments coming in, so cutting off the wooded areas, right? So animals going from one place to another.
Mhm.
So fragmentation is also a bad thing. So it's nice to see some of the communities with these areas that leave wooded areas and leave these natural resource areas so animals can go from one place to another without being severely disturbed. But
Corridors.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you see a gopher tortoise crossing the road, help them out. If you see one in your yard, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, we have a neighborhood gopher tortoise, and he lives across the street behind the house in a tiny little wooded area, and he'll go through his yard across the street, cruises through my front yard, eats a couple weeds. I have a queen palm out front, and I'm usually late at cutting off the inflorescence and the orange seeds that it produces, and gopher tortoise will eat a few of them and just keep on going, and he has his own little route all set out through the neighborhood.
Yep, and provide the native vegetation for the gopher tortoise to eat. Don't be tempted to go out there and get some iceberg lettuce or whatever and go out there and feed them. Just let them feed on the natural vegetation.
And while you set that up for me, Jim, last week I had a program with my guest Alice Herndon, who's a master naturalist and a wildlife photographer. And she did a great program. It's on my Facebook page. It's also on Hernando County Government YouTube. The program was Go For It, Gardening for Gopher Tortoises. And we talk about, the kind of space that they thrive in, and the kind of plants, just a few of the kind of plants that they like to eat. And I took a picture a few days ago in my own yard and tagged her on Facebook saying, add tick seed to that list, because he was munching away on my tick seed. But that's a very educational program to watch. And you can, like I said, find it on Hernando FFL Facebook or Hernando County Government YouTube.
I know Corey says that we think them as common because they live in those lots, but when those lots get built out, they won't have that sanctuary, and that's exactly right. That's very common. Now, I don't know. Now, Corey, I'm assuming you probably live in Pasco County. I don't know, but that's where Frank is, in Pasco County. I grew up in East Pasco and Zephyr Hills, and I don't know if Lily or Bill even remember this back in the day in San Antonio, not Texas, but San Antonio, Florida, near Dade City and Zephyr Hills. They used to have this festival there, and I'm not going to name the festival, but they used to have this festival there. And back in the day, they actually raced gopher tortoises, believe it or not. You actually had little racetracks that they put the gopher tortoises down, and they used to run. It used to be a thing. And so whenever that gopher tortoise was designated as protected and threatened, that stopped. And you also have other instances, unfortunately, where, a couple cases throughout the states, you have these harassment of the gopher tortoises. People paint the gopher tortoise shells, thinking that's a cool thing, and that's a funny thing to do. That's actually detrimental and fatal to the gopher tortoise. So, whenever you see one, what I like to do is take a picture of it from afar and just let it do its thing, and just watch it and admire it.
And there's also a cultural aspect too of eating them. So, and sometimes that's hard to overcome because it's like a, comfort food or something for, some people. But you get in a whole lot of trouble if it's found out, because they are protected species.
Right.
So Deb asks, aren't the builders supposed to catch them and move them to a safe place, relocate them?
They're to contact FWC, and there's a permitting process that has to be done. So any of that case has to be approved by FWC. They're the regulatory body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey lives in Northeast Pasco, Spring Hill area since '85, so he's been here for a while.
So yeah, Corey knows what I'm talking about.
He said he went to the festival turtle race as a kid.
Yep. Yep. He knows what I'm talking about. Had little stands and everything.
Didn't they used to have a chicken plucking contest in Spring Hill many years ago? I think if you Google it, you can find pictures.
Yes, it was in Massar Town. It moved to Spring Hill eventually, but yeah. Bill always wants to know if I was there.
Back in the good old days in Massar Town. Okay, guys, looks like it's getting to be about that time. So if anybody has any last-minute burning questions
Northwest Pasco. I was trying to figure out how he was near Spring Hill for being in Northeast Pasco.
Northwest Pasco.
Yes. Okay.
So, if anybody would like to follow our classes and get any information on any of my upcoming free classes for the public, or Lily's, or Jim's, because Jim does a lot of wildlife and urban entomology, like with household pests and things like that, if you go to hernandoextension.com, that has a full listing of all of our upcoming classes as soon as we plan them out and put down the details about whether it's going to be on Zoom or on Facebook Live or however it's going to be. Everything you need to know is on there.
He's also a palm guy, Jim is.
Yes, if you have any really difficult palm tree questions, ask Jim. And I thought about pulling out all my...
Yeah, whatever we can help you with is good.
Yes. Yeah. He's a palm reader.
I am a palm reader.
Yeah, I thought about pulling out all my pictures of terrible palm pruning jobs, because I have a bunch, because there's a bunch of examples out there about how people manage their palms, and it's pretty terrible.
Why don't we mention that, since hurricane season is going to start very soon, even though it doesn't feel like it? Jim, what do you feel about hurricane pruning your palms?
Well, hurricane pruning is a bad idea, and it's not recommended at all. So basically the only thing that you prune on a palm tree is any of the old inflorescence, the flowering, any of the old seed pods, the old dead leaves, leaves, fronds, same thing. Mm-hmm. And so just prune that. Even if the leaves are yellow, I would tell you kind of leave them on, because that palm is still pulling nutrients from that leaf. Now, if you want to remove the inflorescence, the flowering portion, or the seed pod, especially with the queen palms, because they're like giant torpedoes, you can prune those off anytime. It's not going to hurt. Make sure you sterilize those pruning tools. 70% rubbing alcohol is good. But, don't leave as much vegetation on as possible, because palms are slow. What you see on a palm probably happened 6 to 12 months ago if something occurs. So it takes a long time to correct. If you notice palms, especially sable palms, for example, if you notice sable palms in a development or in a place where they're trimmed, you notice how the leaves are kind of small compared to if I took you hiking in Hernando or Sumter and we looked at the sables in natural areas, and their leaves are huge because they aren't being pruned. That's what excessive pruning does, and also tapers that trunk as well. So you get this little pencil neck as well. So it's not a recommended practice. It doesn't do anything. Doesn't help with a hurricane at all. In fact, the more leaves on a palm, the better it can to withstand a hurricane.
They're kind of built to withstand hurricanes.
They are. Those leaves will actually kind of fold up and protect the meristem on that. So they're pretty adaptive to that. There's some palms better than others as far as wind tolerance. The queen palms are the least wind tolerant palm we have in Florida. And when I worked at a resort in Palm Beach, we lost every single queen palm whenever we had 3 hurricanes come through. All the sables and royals did awesome. Some of the date palms as well. Plant cabbage palms and some of these native palms and pindo palms are awesome. Just get the right palm for the right place. And, for the fertilization, if it looks green, awesome. If you aren't fertilizing with it, stick with that program. If it does need a fertilizer, contact your extension agent and see what it needs and how much. Because you don't want to put the wrong stuff. You want to put the right fertilizer. There's a lot of bad fertilizers out there for palms, so you want to make sure you get the right one. So those are some basic tips for palms.
Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions on here, and I've already shared everybody's emails. If you have any other questions, if you want to contact us, if you have any really complicated palm questions, just send them directly to Jim, because I'm probably going to forward them to him anyway if you send it to me.
And you could tell even in his little promo there, he absolutely loves palms. So.
Oh, I love my palm trees. Yes. Yes, especially our native sable palms. They're fantastic.
Yep. And when someone says, "Hey, I'm going to hurricane prune your palms," there, just say no.
Just say no, and just think of it also this. You're removing a lot of vegetation. These sable palms only produce about 2 to 3 leaves a year. That's it. And so that's their food reserves, if you will. So if you're removing a lot of vegetation, think of what you're doing next year, the year after that, and the year after that. So that's how it works with palm trees. They don't produce that many. Now, a Washingtonia definitely in a queen probably produces more leaves per year than a sable. But still, you don't want to do that because they do not replace as many leaves, that many leaves in 1 year.
And like I said, those sables, those cabbage palms were standing here with standing hurricanes before we ever even thought about ever coming. So
that's right. And one last cool fact that I share on my hikes, Lily, is that if a person sees a 40 to 50 foot sable palm out there, that palm's easily 250, 300 years old. So it's probably one of the oldest plants in that area. So just think about that. A lot of the palms that are planted in the developments on the golf courses are not grown in palm nurseries. If you want a sable palm nursery, that's going to be good for your grandkids and great grandkids. But all those are transplanted from somewhere else because they do transplant very well. But they're very long-lived palms.
Yeah, so you want to learn how to properly manage them and maintain them and keep them around for another 100 years or so.
And they're an excellent pollinator plant.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And what they hate is all the nitrogen that your lawn needs.
Oh yes. You want if you want a good way to kill a palm, put it next to a golf course. Right, Bill? Because a turf fertilizer will straight out kill a palm tree because it's too much, and it'll develop a potassium deficiency, and that will be fatal.
Okay, well, I think it's just about that time. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us this week. Jim, thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Lily.
We're going to have you back again sometime. So
absolutely.
And Lily, thank you, like always.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jim. I enjoyed it today.
If you guys want to stay on here for just a moment, thanks again, and we will see everybody back here again next Thursday.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.